What's up, everybody? Blessed be. My name is Manon, and you are watching Witch in the Working, where we will be discussing all things witchy in and around, throughout and about, above, below, and beyond. This video offers my personal views on the topic at hand. Please visit me on my other platforms as well, including Facebook, Instagram, and Patreon, all linked down in the description below. The full script of this video and most of the others is available on my Patreon account for download if desired to build your very own Witch in the Working Book of Shadows. Do you need help with a spell or fancy a tarot reading? Shoot on over to my store, Bewitching and Bizarre, linked down in the description below for your personalized working and or reading. So in today's video, we're going to talk about something that's been floating around in the digital cauldron for quite a while now: TikTok witchcraft. Now, don't get me wrong, the internet's got its perks, and I'm all for folks finding their path in whatever way calls to them. But when magic becomes a 15-second aesthetic trend with no backbone, we gotta pause and take a little bit of a look into this situation a little bit deeper. In this video, I'll be sharing why I personally don't use or follow TikTok witchcraft, and why that decision's got everything to do with honoring the craft, not just resisting modern tools. Whether you're brand new to the path or have been walking it for years, we're going to explore how to keep your practice real, rooted, and respectfully your own. So without further ado, roll intro. Welcome back, everybody. So witchcraft has never been more visible than it is today. Social media has flung open the broom closet and tossed spell jars, tarot decks, and aesthetic altar shots right into the mainstream. And nowhere is that more obvious than on TikTok. If you've ever spent even 5 minutes scrolling through the #WitchTok tag, you know what I mean. It's a whirlwind of beautifully edited videos featuring glowing candles, softly whispered incantations, trendy background music, and a whole lot of crystals. It's visually stunning and often pretty catchy. But here's the thing: just because something looks magical doesn't mean it is magical in practice. So what exactly is TikTok witchcraft? At its core, it's witchy content created specifically for TikTok's short-form, fast-paced video platform. Most of these clips are under a minute long, and in that time, creators try to pack in a spell, a tip, or a bold claim about the universe, usually dressed up in glitter and aesthetic charm. Think, here's a spell you can do in 15 seconds to make your crush text you, or this color candle will instantly protect your energy. Don't question it, just do it. Now, that might sound harmless or even fun, and hey, I'm not here to knock anyone's creative outlet, but it's important to understand that what's happening on WitchTok is often more about performance than it is about real rooted practice. And for someone just starting out on their path, that can be, well, pretty confusing. TikTok rewards engagement. That means the more shocking, bold, or controversial the content, the more likely it is to go viral. This is why you'll see videos saying things like, "Don't trust anyone who works with Hecate unless they've been initiated under a full moon in Greece," or "Hexing the moon isn't dangerous, the moon's just a rock." Statements like that get attention, but they don't always have the backing of tradition, study, or experience. They're just loud. And unfortunately, when you're new to magic, it's easy to assume that volume equals wisdom. Well, it doesn't. TikTok witchcraft has turned sacred practices into scrollable moments. What used to be passed down through mentorship, experience, and deep self-discovery is now being chopped up into bite-sized, life hack style content. It's the spiritual equivalent of trying to learn kung fu from a meme. Sure, you might catch a cool move or two, but without the foundation, context, or understanding, you're just swinging wildly. This kind of platform also creates what I like to call spiritual speed dating. You've got people jumping from deity to deity, path to path, and spell to spell without pausing to really connect. It's like magical FOMO, fear of missing out on the next trendy practice. One week it's glamour magic, the next it's manifesting wealth with bay leaves, the next week after that it's cursing your ex with moon water, which, please don't do that. That's not to say TikTok doesn't have its gems. Some creators genuinely care and try to educate, but their voices often get buried under the noise of algorithms and theatrics. And if you're brand new to witchcraft, it can be incredibly tough to know who's legit and who's just chasing likes. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm all for evolving practices and modern expressions of witchcraft, but I believe that real magic takes time, patience, and a willingness to go deeper than a 60-second clip. It's not just a vibe or a trend, it's a path, and that path deserves more than an aesthetic filter. So when folks ask me why I'm not on WitchTok or why I don't post my spells there, this is what I tell them. Witchcraft, to me, is sacred. It's not something I want to cram into a trendy soundbite. It's a relationship with nature, with spirit, and with myself. And that relationship deserves the full story, not just the highlight reel. Bottom line, TikTok witchcraft may be entertaining, but when it comes to learning the craft, don't let your education be dictated by algorithms. Use your curiosity wisely, explore questions, dig deeper, and above all, give your path the time and respect it truly deserves. Let's talk about something that's become really common in today's witchy spaces, especially online, and that's the obsession with making everything look mystical, magical, and let's be honest, Instagram worthy. I'll call this the aesthetic trap, where the appearance of witchcraft is mistaken for the practice itself. Again, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with beautiful altars, neatly labeled apothecary jars, or a candlelit tarot spread that could pass for a Renaissance painting. Beauty and ritual have always gone hand in hand. Even the ancient temples were full of ornate carvings and sacred geometry. But when the look of the craft starts to replace the work of the craft, well, that's where it hits a snag. The problem isn't candles that match your mood board. The problem is when people think that's all witchcraft really is. Scroll through social media and you'll see what I mean. You've got influencers lighting a candle and calling it a spell, or waving some smoke around and calling it a full moon ritual. They've got flowing robes, crystals arranged like crop circles, and captions that say things like, "This vibe summoned abundance." But there's no context, no background, no connection to deeper learning, history, or practice. It's all surface. Now, this isn't about judging anyone's spiritual expression. Everyone starts somewhere. And hey, if lighting a pink candle and journaling in your velvet grimoire gives you peace, then I support it. But let's be real, witchcraft isn't always glamorous. Sometimes it's muddy, sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's nothing more than sitting alone with your thoughts under a cloudy sky, asking the universe to help you heal. There's a big difference between crafting a vibe and crafting a life. Real magic, the kind that reshapes your mindset or bends the flow of your reality, doesn't care if you have matching altar cloths. It cares if your intention is clear. It cares if your energy is aligned. It cares if you've done the shadow work, not if your book of shadows is embossed in gold foil. The aesthetic craze can also cause some folks to feel like they're not witchy enough. They'll say things like, "I don't have a big altar," or "My tools aren't fancy, so maybe I'm not doing this right." And I always want to grab them by the shoulders, gently of course, and say, none of that matters. Your power doesn't come from rose quartz shaped like a heart. It comes from your will, your focus, and your connection to the unseen. Some of the most powerful witches I know have never posted a single picture of their practice. Their craft lives in their bones, not on their phones. What's really tricky is that social media rewards style over substance. Platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and even Pinterest thrive on quick, pretty visuals. And it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, "This looks good, so it must be good." But that's not always true. Some of the most viral witch content is flat out inaccurate, and worse, it's watered down to the point that it's lost all its roots. Witchcraft is a path of experience. It's something you do, not something you just display. It's in the quiet preparation of herbs, the whisper of incantations you wrote yourself, the feeling you get when a ritual just clicks, and none of that can be captured in a 30-second reel with a lo-fi beat and moon filters. So if you're watching those trendy videos and starting to feel like you don't measure up, stop. You don't need a ring light to be a witch. You don't need aesthetic tools, perfect skin, or a cabin in the woods. You just need sincerity. You need curiosity. And you need the patience to grow your craft slowly, with care and with honesty. Here's the truth. Style can complement substance, but it should never replace it. The magic isn't in the picture, it's in the practice. So let's stop chasing the aesthetic and start building the authentic. Okay, let's get this out of the way. Yes, People on TikTok really did try to hex the moon. And no, that's not some kind of metaphor or poetic expression. A few creators literally claimed they cast a curse on the moon, as if it were a cranky ex-boyfriend who stood them up on a date. That moment, wild as it was, pretty much sums up what we're diving into here. The wildfire spread of misinformation in online witchcraft spaces, especially on platforms like TikTok, where speed and shock value get you more views than accuracy ever will. So let's talk about it, because this stuff matters, especially for beginners who are hungry to learn and might not have the tools yet to spot the red flags. The internet moves fast. TikTok moves even faster. Content is built to grab attention in the first 2 seconds, and if you can stir up some drama or controversy, boom, you're trending. That means a lot of creators lean into bold, exaggerated, or just plain wrong information to get that sweet engagement. It's not always about truth, it's about traction. You'll see videos that say things like, never use white candles, or you must cleanse your tarot deck under a blood moon, or it will never work. You'll hear folks tossing around terms like shadow work, cord cutting, or manifestation like they're buzzwords from a self-help catalog instead of real rooted practices that require care and understanding. The problem is, when misinformation is delivered with confidence and good lighting, it feels like fact. And if 10 other creators are parroting the same idea, it starts to look like consensus, even if it's just a loop of people repeating something they saw without checking it out for themselves. Let's be real, some of this stuff gets downright dangerous. There was a trend a while back where folks were claiming you could cleanse your energy by bathing in lemon juice and vinegar. Not only is that unnecessary, it's also a recipe for skin irritation, especially if you've got sensitive skin. But that's what happens when people try to turn deep spiritual work into quick hacks or life upgrades. Then there are the spells that straight up skip safety. Candle magic with flammable herbs piled high, jars sealed tight with pressure sensitive ingredients, or people using essential oils directly on skin without dilution. All because someone saw it on WitchTok and thought, well, she looked like she knew what she was doing, so I'm gonna do it. It's not just physical risk either. Emotional and spiritual harm is on the table too. Casting baneful spells without understanding ethical consequences, invoking deities with zero background or offerings, opening up to spirit communication with no protections. It's like spiritual Russian roulette. Now, look, if you're just starting out, it's totally normal to want guidance. You're curious, you're excited, and the idea of picking up little magical tips online feels like finding hidden little treasures. But without a foundation in place, without the ability to discern hype from truth, it's easy to build your practice on shaky ground. And sadly, most of the platforms pushing this content don't prioritize accuracy. They push virality. So the creators who take time to explain context, history, or safety, they're often buried under piles of do this now for instant results videos. That's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to do something about it. So, what can we do? Start by questioning everything, even me, even your favorite creators. Ask, where did this come from? Is there a source? Does this practice belong to a closed culture I shouldn't be messing with? Get curious in the best way. Second, slow down. You don't have to learn everything in a week. Witchcraft isn't a sprint, it's a lifelong path of discovery. Take the time to read books, talk to mentors, or just listen to your own intuition. Real magic doesn't need to be flashy to be powerful. Lastly, don't be afraid to say, I don't know. That phrase is the gateway to wisdom. It means you're open to learning, not just parroting. At the end of the day, the internet is a tool. It can open doors or lead you down rabbit holes. What matters is how you use it. Don't let trends shape your craft. Let your craft shape you. Witchcraft didn't just fall out of the sky with hashtags and aesthetic candles. It has roots, deep, winding, ancient roots that stretch back farther than TikTok trends or Pinterest-worthy altars. And if we're going to walk this path with any kind of sincerity, we've got to talk about that. Now, I know the word tradition can sound kind of heavy, like we're about to step into a dusty old library filled with gatekeepers and strict rules. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about respect. Respect for the practices that came before us, the people who kept them alive through centuries of persecution, and the cultures that birthed sacred systems long before witchcraft became mainstream. For me, as a Gardnerian Wiccan, that respect runs deep. Our tradition comes with structure, initiations, degrees, rituals passed down through word of mouth and experience. We don't just light a candle and wing it. We honor what was handed down to us, and we do our best to preserve it, not because it's old-fashioned, but because it works. There's value in discipline. There's wisdom in repetition. That doesn't mean modern witches must follow a traditional path. Witchcraft is a big, wide, diverse umbrella. There's room for folk magic, kitchen witchery, chaos magic, solitary paths, and eclectic blends. But no matter how you practice, there's one golden rule that really shouldn't be negotiable. Know where your stuff comes from. Too often, especially online, you'll see people mixing practices from closed traditions without even realizing it. Someone will call on Orisha one week, smudge with white sage the next, and then try to summon Hecate without offerings or understanding who she even is. And it's not that they're being malicious, it's usually just ignorance. But here's the thing, good intentions don't excuse poor research. Closed practices like voodoo, Santeria, or certain indigenous ceremonies aren't aesthetic options. They're sacred systems with rules, lineages, and living communities. Grabbing pieces of them and tossing them into a spell jar for aesthetic or power boost purposes is at best shallow, and at worst it's disrespectful. Even within more accessible traditions, there's still a need to learn, to study, to grow. Working with deities isn't like collecting Pokemon. You just don't call them in because you saw someone do it in a cool video. Real relationships with the divine, whether it's the Lord and Lady, ancient gods, ancestors, or spirits, take time. They require offerings, patience, and a willingness to be humbled. Now, I'm not saying everyone needs a coven or a formal initiation. What I'm saying is this: witchcraft deserves your time. If you're going to step onto this path, make it a real journey, not a scavenger hunt for cool-looking spells. Read the books, talk to elders, dig deeper, ask questions like where did this spell come from, or who first practiced this ritual and why. When we take the time to honor where magic comes from, whether it's a coven's teachings, a cultural tradition, or the practices of wise folk long gone, we're doing more than just being respectful. We're grounding our practice in truth, and trust me, spells rooted in truth are way more powerful than ones copied from a trendy video with no backstory. One more thing, respecting the roots doesn't mean never adapting. Traditions evolve. Even with Gardnerian Wicca, we grow, we question, and we make space for personal expression. But we do so with care, not by tossing the old ways aside like outdated furniture. We build on the foundation, not over it. So wherever you are in your practice, beginner, seasoned witch, or somewhere in between, remember this: the craft is bigger than all of us. It's been carried on the backs of rebels, mystics, midwives, and outcasts. It deserves more than a passing glance. It deserves reverence. Witchcraft, like any spiritual path, isn't meant to be shoved into a tight little box. It's not supposed to be all rules and restrictions, but it's also not a free-for-all where anything goes and nothing matters. That's where the idea of the middle path comes in. It's a sweet spot, a balanced approach where you can explore, question, create, and grow without throwing out the roots or the responsibility. Let's be honest. One of the biggest challenges in the modern witchcraft scene is the tension between tradition and freedom. On one side, you've got folks who are strict about lineage, structure, and doing things the right way. On the other side, there are witches who say, I'll do whatever I feel like, intuition is all I need. And then there's everyone else stuck in the middle, wondering if they do magic wrong because they don't fit neatly into either camp. Here's the truth, you're not wrong. You're growing. There's a big difference between gatekeeping and guidance. Gatekeeping says you can't be a witch unless you follow this exact method. Guidance says, here's what's worked for me and why it might help you. One shuts the door, the other opens a window. And that's what we need more of, windows. A lot of folks come into the craft through platforms like TikTok or Instagram, and yeah, we've talked about how those places can be misleading. But they're also meeting points. They're sparks that light curiosity. And if we want to help people fan that spark into a real flame, we need to support them, not shame them. You don't teach someone by mocking where they started. You help them find their footing so they can keep climbing. That's what the middle path is about. It's not blind devotion to tradition, and it's not careless cherry picking either. It's intentional. It's about blending modern tools with ancient wisdom, using technology to reach more people while encouraging them to dig deeper, read more, and connect with the craft beyond the screen. For new witches, the middle path might look like starting with a simple moon ritual from YouTube and then deciding to read a book about the lunar cycle and how it's been honored across cultures. For seasoned witches, it might mean letting go of the urge to correct everyone and instead offer resources, mentorship, or just a kind word. Because here's the thing. Everyone's journey looks different. Some folks walk the solitary path their whole life. Others find community in covens, circles, or online groups. Some follow deity work, others don't. Some love a beautifully curated altar, others work with nothing more than a candle in their own breath. And all of it's valid, as long as it comes from a place of respect, effort, and personal truth. That's why I personally choose not to be on WitchTok. It's not because I'm against newer witches or modern approaches, it's because I believe in making space for deeper learning. I believe in holding the craft sacred. And for me, that means offering my teachings in a way that allow for context, conversation, and connection like YouTube or long-form writing. But I don't want to shut anyone out. I want to invite them in to take the next step beyond quick trends and aesthetic posts. I want to show them that magic isn't just a vibe, it's a relationship. It takes time, patience, and sometimes a little discomfort, but it's so worth it. So if you're feeling stuck between being too modern or not traditional enough, take a breath. You're exactly where you're supposed to be, on the path, figuring it out, just like the rest of us. Keep learning, keep questioning, and most of all, keep honoring the craft, not as a performance, but as a practice. Because witchcraft isn't about being perfect, it's about being present. At the end of the day, witchcraft isn't about trending hashtags, perfect altar setups, or how many views your spell work can rack up. It's about connection, real, personal, sometimes messy, and always evolving. Whether you're walking an ancient path with tradition at your back or just stepping into the craft for the first time through a TikTok video, what matters most is your intention and your integrity. Magic isn't a quick fix or a filtered aesthetic. It's a lifestyle, a mindset, and a journey that asks you to show up with honesty, curiosity, and respect for the roots that got us here. So if you've made it this far, I hope you're walking away with more than just opinions. I hope you're leaving with questions, good ones, the kind that make you pause, dig deeper, and look beyond the surface. You don't need to be a textbook expert or belong to a coven to be a powerful witch, but you do need to care. Care enough to study. Care enough to honor the traditions that came before you. Care enough to grow. Because when we choose the middle path, the one that balances freedom with foundation, we make room for a craft that's not just beautiful, but authentic. And that's where the real magic lives. Well, that's going to wrap up this episode of Witch into Working. Are you actively engaging with WitchTok? What do you think about my outtake? Let us all know down in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget to ring that little bell to be reminded of the wonderful and exciting future episodes to come. I love you guys and gals. Blessed be.